literally every day of my life, I would have this figured out, but I don't. So, okay, the power of storytelling. So I have this book, Stories That Stick by Kendra Hall. I bought it before Summit was canceled because it is the gal who was supposed to be the keynote speaker at Summit. So I'm like, well, I should read her book. But that's kind of what I base this presentation off of. And so our game plan is some announcements. I'm going to skip story time because you know how I get. 4 parts of a successful storytelling framework, types of stories, and then we're going to spend a little bit of time writing our own or talking about writing our own. So some announcements we have is you probably got annoyed by me posting in the group yesterday, but it was super awesome. That super weekend, if you were on that, I know like Brittany was on that, Mari was on it. I don't know if anyone else was, but it was super cool. And they had a lot of dates they talked about. So right now, Alana Molstead, who did To Be Mindset, has a book coming out. So that's good. April 26th is BOD groups. So like if any of you have used my challenge tracker before, like the app, it's similar to that. But what I'm really excited about is BOD groups will be in, like in your Beachbody app. I'm trying to think where mine is. There's a training on it too. I don't even have mine, like it's offloaded right now or whatever you want to call it. But in the bottom, how it says like workouts, nutrition, and blog, it'll have a spot for groups. And so instead of being like, oh, hey, you should get this app and go to this website and that website, we can be like, here is the Beachbody On Demand app. And then within that is BOD groups. And so they seem like they'll function similarly. The other thing I'm excited about is Mixed Berry Energize. They announced this a long time ago, but it's coming out on May 18th. And so that's going to be a new flavor of Energize. June 23rd, they announced Salted Caramel Vegan Shakeology. And then the Bevy in July. So these Beachbody Bevies are going to be a whole new ballgame. So the premise of it is that it's like a fun after meal drink or a fun like afternoon drink that's supposed to be proven to like curb your cravings and help support weight loss over time. And they're tea based. And so they're completely new. So none of us have ever tried them, but I'm excited to try them. And then lastly, there is a new program coming out in July that is called MBF. And when I first heard this, I literally thought they were like, MBF, I'm like, major bitch face. Okay, like interesting. And it means muscle burns fat. And Megan Davies is the trainer on that. And then that's a 3-week program. So I'm kind of excited because I like to switch my programs a lot. And so it's really hard. Like when I did Morning Meltdown, it was hard because it was 100 days. And I like 21-day fix and stuff because it's quick. And then there's it should be MBF A, which is the advanced version for another 3 weeks. But that's some stuff going on. Remember, BAR comes out, today's the 19th, right? BAR comes out on Friday. So if you have anyone or if you want to do BAR, it comes out Friday to everyone. Okay. Moving on, if I can get my, okay, we're gonna move on past that and I'll come back to it, maybe. Okay, so going back, if you ever, this is a really, really good book to get, is the Stories That Stick by Kendra Hall. And I'll talk about it at the end again. But essentially there are 4 basic parts to make a successful story. So we want identifiable. I've been fumbling all day on how to say this word, so, you know, don't mind me. Indefinable, whatever word, characters, authentic emotion, a significant moment, and specific detail. So I'm going to go into each one of these a little further, so don't feel like you have to chicken scratch all right now. Okay, so these are kind of our 4 components. So we have the identifiable, that's what I'm sticking with, identifiable character, which is someone we care about and connect to. 9 times out of 10, that character is us, right? So the purpose of, I guess, this call is to help you guys share your story and share stories in your lives because we all have them, okay? Number two, your second component is authentic emotion. So you want the emotion felt by a character or inherent in the circumstances of the story, right? Like if you talk about your grandma passing away, like people, like even just saying that, like you can feel how they felt even in that statement. And so you want emotion. You want a significant moment. So this is a very specific space. So where you are, a time or a circumstance. You want a very specific or significant place that you were at. And then specific details. So you want to be specific, you want to be descriptive, and sometimes unexpected details you might add, right? Some people talk to me about like, I can't even, I think of my husband, right? I can't believe you posted that on your Instagram, or I can't believe you talked about that, or whatever. And it's, oh, sorry, hang on. Jess is joining. There we go. And so you want all four of these parts you want in every single story. So you want to make sure you have a character, authentic emotion, right? So I like to talk about authenticity, which sometimes is a fine line to walk, because I think sometimes I look at the things people post and I wonder, like, is that authentic? Is that really what you're feeling? Or are you saying that? But then on the other side is, I think on social media, we've got so into showing the highlight reel. Like, I mean, if you looked at my Instagram, right, you would see my photos of me that are edited, that I'm smiling, that all this stuff. And it is my highlight reel, right? And so I try through my stories and stuff to show that emotion and stuff like that, so they know I'm a real person and stuff in my life is not unicorns and rainbows and stuff, because that's who they're going to connect with. So those are essentially your four parts of a great story that you want. So a character, emotion, a significant moment, and then specifics. The specifics too, the purpose of that is to help them put themselves in your shoes, right? If I talk about a story where, you know, like I went to SDSU and I remember going to my first football game and I remember going to the dairy bar, right? All my gals on here that went to SDSU, like they can probably relate to that. And then they start to see themselves in that story and they start to place themselves in that, right? I think about like my posts, when I post about being an ag teacher, there are multiple girls on this call who can put themselves in my shoes every time I tell a story about that, because I give specific details that they're like, yeah, I remember having to be at school at 6 a.m. for a CDE contest, or I remember, you know, like the last time I took off my FFA jacket. And so you want specific things that people can relate to. Okay. So next is the breakdown of the storytelling framework, right? So we have normal, which is how things were, right? We have explosion, where something happens, and then the new normal, where things are different. So a quick like rundown of this would be like, right, I graduated college, I was student teaching. Well, I guess I was still in college, but right, I was student teaching. I just moved somewhere, like I was really happy. My depression was really bad. And I just was really struggling to find my people and my group of people. And so that was my normal. I was coming home, I was sitting on the couch, I was watching hours of Netflix every single night. And that was my normal, right? I thought you, being an adult, right? Because this was the first time I lived in my own house. I didn't live with a bunch of roommates. Because my whole life I lived with my parents, and then I lived in the dorms, and then I lived in a sorority house. Then Shane and I moved in with his parents. So this was literally the first time we were ever on our own. And so I thought the adult world was, you wake up, you go to work, you come home, you watch TV and make supper, and you go to bed. And I thought that's what life was. And then I was, right, so here's my explosion. I was sitting on the couch watching Instagram story after Instagram story of these women who were happy, living their lives to the fullest, working out, being confident. And I was just like, if they can do it, why can't I? Like, I need to cut with the bullshit and start doing the hard stuff, because I can sit on the couch for 4 hours a day and watch TV and then turn around and say, well, I don't have time to work out. Like, I get up too early, or I work all day. Okay. So I just, in that moment, I remember it. I was sitting on my couch in the dark, crying, watching America's Got Talent. I don't know why Shane hated that show, but right. And I messaged my coach Valerie and just said like, and she never ever said anything about being a Beachbody coach before this. And I just said like, are you doing Beachbody? Because like I need to do something. So that was my explosion. Now my new normal, right? So now I work out every day. I drink my Shakeology, which I had a gym membership for 4 years in college and used it maybe 10 times. And then I use Shakeology every day. And I said I would never use like Shakeology because it's too expensive and it's not worth it. And I'm happy, right? I am working probably more hours than I've ever worked in my life, but I feel like I have more control over my life than I ever had. Okay. So that kind of correlates with my story time I had earlier. But I just want to show you that framework of like normal, explosion, new normal, right? And if we go back to these components, right? I talked about me as the character, which is hopefully someone you care about and can connect with. And then I showed you that emotion, right? I talked about crying on the couch. I talked about just like my depression and my mental health. I remember the exact time, the exact place, the exact thing I said to Valerie, and then I gave specific details. And so these are kind of how you flow through that storytelling, because that's what people want. People want stories. They don't want facts, right? I could list you fact after fact about Shakeology, and no one's going to give a darn until I tell them a story about before I used Shakeology, when I realized I needed it, and now what I feel like. Okay. So normal, this kind of goes into it, right? That was me before I started Beachbody. It was my wedding. It's tough. My wedding day, I was the heaviest I ever was, which I don't think fitness is about a weight. I don't think it's about a weight at all. But that was a struggle for me when I look back at my wedding photos, because I had a panic moment. I actually had to pay a lot of money to get my dress taken out because I gained so much weight from the day I bought my dress to like my final fitting. I had to get it altered. And so my normal was difficult. But you want to start by establishing the normal. These were the way things were before something changed, right? So before you ever started working out, before you, met your significant other, before something happened, before the explosion, okay? You want to add your details here, and you want to introduce your character and their emotions, right? Think of the emotions, and I don't want to say the word play like in a bad way, but think of the emotions that women have attached to their wedding day. I mean, you throw in the emotions of a wedding day, and a lot of females will relate to that or relate to a significant other. You also want to have them put themselves in the character's shoes, right? So in the normal is where you create them in your shoes. And so this is essentially the part where you give your audience a reason to care, right? I want you to think of, a lot of us have been through personal development in here. A lot of us have had to go to conferences and workshops for school. And you just think of like when the keynote speaker gets up there and they just start like listing off facts and telling you random stuff. And you really like, right? You're scrolling on your phone in the back and you're not really paying attention. And then I think about like some of the Ag Day speakers we had at SDSU were really good. And I think of like a lot of our women at Summit last year were just really good because they have a story, and it's through their story that you put yourself in their shoes and you can start to walk with them and see their highs and their lows and where they're going. Okay. So that's your normal. Your explosion is simply something happening, right? It could be big or small, good, bad, right? I mean, an explosion could be that you got your dream job. An explosion could be that you won $1 million. The explosion could be that your mom passes away and you have to figure out how to deal with that. It could be as small as, right? Like I think of a huge explosion in my life was getting my dog. Like I didn't realize how much I was missing out on, right? Explosion for, Jess probably is like having her daughter, right? Like there are things that are big, small, good, bad, ugly, beautiful that happen in our life that are catalysts. And it's the pivotal moment that things change, right? So it could be an event, it could be an idea, it could be a realization, it could be any of those, right? So enjoy that picture of me. That was probably like my first week in 21 Day Fix. And it looks like my basement was still a lot more put together than it is now because we've kind of tore the whole thing apart. And I don't have that wood paneling wall. But right, my explosion in all this was that I decided to be a Beachbody coach. And I'm guessing for a lot of you guys, that is going to play a part in your story and in your explosion that you're talking about. And lastly, your new normal. So this is where you share what your life is like after your explosion, right? You tell them what you know now, why you are wiser or stronger, or how you've improved as a result, or how you're still improving, right? Like, I loved it. I was listening to my Keisha podcast, Empower Her, and what was the quote? I wrote it down in my phone because it's so good. About how, it's about how there is no end game, right? So she talked about how a lot of people will be like, well, I got done with 21 Day Fix, right? And then the weight came back on, or I started, I used the portion containers when I was in 21 Day Fix, but I learned that when I went on to, Transform 20 and I didn't use the containers anymore, that I wasn't getting as good of results, right? And so there is no end game. So your new normal is even improving, right? I think of the things I've learned thus far in my journey in a year, and I can't imagine what it's going to be like a year from now. Okay. And your new normal is what makes your story worth listening to. I think of all the stupid, cheesy Hallmark movies or all the Nicholas Sparks books where it's like, right, you read and you read and you read just to know that they fall in love, even though you knew that's probably what was going to happen anyways, because it's like a romance movie or a romance novel, but like it's what makes it worth listening to. People naturally want to cheer you on and naturally want to see you overcome everything, right? So I just think of, like, Sarah's in my little corner right now. So I think of, right, for Sarah, her normal was like being in pharmacy school and the hard classes and stress with all that. Her explosion was like in her internship, she learned it all. She felt like she could do it. Like she's confident she's going to be a bomb pharmacist. And then her new normal is like, she's going to get a job and she's going to make the world a better place, because when people are healthy, they feel better and then they're good human beings. So, right. People want to make it worth listening to. Okay. I'm trying to see if I'm talking too much. 801. I'm still good. The value story. So now it's confusing. I should have put slides in between this. Right. So we kind of talked about the 4 steps in a story. We talked about how you write the story. And now there's 4 types of stories. I didn't realize how confusing this is until now. The value story you use to bridge the gap between what you offer and the people who need it and maybe don't even know it, right? Like, I know there are all people in our lives who we are like, girl, you need to do this. Like, you need to do Beachbody. You need to do all this stuff. I'm just going to check the chat. Oh, perfect. And it won't go away. There we go. And there's, right, people in our lives that we're like, you would benefit so much from this. And we push and we push and we push. And they just don't, right? Like we know they need it, but they don't know they need it. And so essentially a value story is to capture their attention of your buyers and transform them into believers of the product, right? So how do you tell the value of Energize, Shakeology, Beachbody programs, or maybe it's not even that, right? I preach all the time about a good morning routine. So how do I create a story to show people the value of waking up early and reading in the morning or doing personal development or any of that? Okay. The other one is the founder story, which is one I think all of us is something we should all work on, because this is how you sell yourself, right? I'm going to be completely honest. There are a lot of Beachbody coaches out there, right? A lot of us in this group know the same groups of people. there are a lot of Beachbody coaches. So why is someone going to come to you instead of someone else? I want you to think there are people on this call who came to this team or switched coaches for a reason, right? So part of my story, I guess I didn't share, is I did Beachbody when I was a sophomore in college. So 3 years before I ever started Beachbody again, and I failed at it. So I said, well, why did I fail at it? And I determined, well, it's because, my coach didn't check in. I felt like my coach was just pestering me to buy product. Okay, so now how can I be a coach that doesn't do that? And how can I be a coach that helps women stay on track, doesn't abandon them, and builds this community? Okay, so the founder story is our way to stand out and to bridge the gap between you and your customers, right? And you are selling yourself. So your value story is about product and what we're trying to do for others. Our founder story is all about us and trying to sell us as a human. You think of, right, people who are applying for jobs like Amber and Sarah, maybe you're applying for jobs right now, right? You're going to go in an interview and you have to sell yourself. So how can you tell a story when they ask me, tell me about yourself? How do you not sit there and say like, hi, I'm Brianna. I'm from South Dakota. I went to SDSU and got my degree and I like my dog, right? Like that's not convincing to an employer. So how do we tell our story, to talk about ourselves? And, if you talk about, well, I like to get up, and I love to read personal development. Like you talk about personal development to any employer, they're probably going to be like, you're hired, because people don't do that anymore and they want people who do it. So moving on. Purpose story. So the purpose story is to align and inspire your team. So I will have one of these coming probably in the next week. It kind of reconnects everyone and it brings us together to remember our purpose, because it can kind of get lost in all the shuffle. Like you even think of your purpose in life can get caught kind of in the gray with everything going on, especially with coronavirus and with the stress of everything and just getting more work piled on. You kind of forget like, why did you do it? Why did you sign up? Why are we here? Why are we doing it? Why are we on this team call tonight? Like, who cares, right? So that one's short and sweet. And then the last one is customer story. So as you know, reviews and referrals have an enormous influence, right? So think of how many of you guys have bought from a boutique or a store because you're friends. I think of a perfect example is Brittany shared on her Instagram about these headbands she loved. She loves bands with a twist. And she shared it. She shared cute photos. She talked about them. So I'm like she works out, I work out, like the lines are adding up. Maybe I should check them out. I checked them out and I love them, right? I am wearing my bands with a twist right now. I know Amber has bands with a twist. I know other people in here have bands with a twist. And this is all because the customer was happy and shared her story, right? I think of kind of one way I share customer stories is anytime a challenger sends me a text or a message that is kind of, right, like talking about their transformation or how they're so happy with their results, or this is how they're doing, or this is how they're feeling, I just screenshot it, I blank out their name, and I post that to my story. It does one of two things. First, it shows other people that this is actually working for people and it's a good review. Second, I do it because they also feel really special that I called them out and that I'm sharing their story, right? Because a lot of them, they don't want to publicly say some of them will, right? Kylie and McKenna and stuff, they let me share their transformation photos. But most people are private messaging me about going down a pants size or an emotional thing that, they were finally able to wear, I don't know, a dress that's been hanging in their closet or XYZ that's going on in their lives, or getting up early, right? People have messaged me about I finally can get out of bed at, 6 o'clock and get my workout in. And so those customer stories you want to share and it's good when they come from them, because I always think of the stupid commercials on TV that are like, these are actors. They are, or they say like, these are real people, not actors. And you're like, yes, it's an actor. Like, there's no way. And they're telling you how great, I don't know, the newest shampoo is. And it's like, you paid them to say it. Like, I can go on there and quote anyone that I want and say, like, well, Barbara, I don't know Barbara, but, well, I do, but not in like this. But like, right, Barbara says that the programs are amazing. She lost 50 pounds, she still drank all her White Claws and she did this. And it's like, okay, but Barbara is this made up person that they don't attach emotion with. And so that's why I have a picture of my challenger, Sammy, down there. Some of you guys probably know her. But she like genuinely posts about her workouts all the time just because she loves them. And so it's like, that speaks mountains on me. And my big thing with customer stories, and part of it that motivates me for coaching, is I never want someone to, like, say I invite someone and someone to be, and I don't think they would in the Midwest, but say like, well, so-and-so told me, you didn't really check in with them and you weren't really a good coach. And like, I never want someone to think I didn't do the best I could, or, because I get it. Some people have high expectations and I may fall short of those even when I'm trying my best. But I want to make sure that the reviews I'm getting and the referrals are positive, and Sammy's not running around saying like, well, she doesn't help me at all or whatever. So, okay, deep breath. We get to the last part. I'm sorry, I talk so much. I always say that. These are also like, Zoom meetings aren't, I guess you can have interactive, but these are hard to. Okay, story. Okay, writing your story. So there are 2 steps. So these are the 2 steps I want you to think about. So step 1 is make a list of people, things, places, events, jobs, houses, memories, any of that, right? So this is how, because some of you might be here and you're like, Brianna, I live the most boring life of ever, right? Like, there is nothing exciting that goes on. And that's okay. Maybe that's true. Maybe you are a boring person, but that's okay, because how many other people are sitting at home saying, I'm a boring person and I have nothing going on in my life. And so you think of your houses, you think of your jobs, you think of places you've been, events, people in your lives that have impacted you. All of those things, okay, are where we can collect stories. Some questions, right? When have you had to be resourceful? When was your worst day? What was your best day? What's a hard thing you've had to done? What's changed your life? What's your proudest moment? I think of all these like touchy-feeling questions they ask us, I don't know, at a meeting or something, I don't know. But you just want to ask questions because that's going to get you the answer that you're looking for. And so essentially you can make a list, right? I think of, I don't know, I get most of my ideas when I'm driving, right? And so I have a notes in my phone and I use the talk to text and I just like talk into my phone and it goes. Another way I collect stories kind of ish is I go on Pinterest and I look for motivating quotes. And then I just think like, I will write the quote down. Like, I mean, guys, I have like sticky notes with quotes all over, like literally everywhere. And I just write them down and I just like, I don't know if you want to say meditate on them, but I just think like, how can I share this? Okay. And so I just sit and I think of like in my group, I just realized this too. I share this with my other girls, but literally on my desk, you have stories. I don't know if you can see that because I can't see myself, but you have stories that the world needs to hear. Okay. I also have, I don't know if you can see this either, but on my vision board, it literally says the world needs who you were made to be. We were put on this earth for a purpose. I truly believe in that. And I know a lot of you guys do too. And so I think that our stories and what we've been through, our trials, are really important for others. And the positives too. I think that we can show people how to, in a healthy way, deal with stress and handle those situations. So you have stories to tell, so you can't tell me you don't. Okay. And then lastly, step 2, is choosing stories, right? So this is just recapping. If you want sales, right? So like some of you guys who are probably trying to build your coaching business and get customers and challengers, you're probably going to look at a value story because you want more effective sales. Okay. You want to show people that your Shakeology is working. You want to show people that Energize makes you literally bounce off the walls and get amazing results. Okay. A founder story that can increase your confidence and differentiate you from others, right? I should do the thing on Instagram that's like, describe me in 3 words, because I think it's good to know what makes us different than other people, because we all are unique. A purpose story aligns your team, and then a customer story is better sales, marketing, and credibility. So a quote from this book that I really liked was to find more stories in your life. So if you're like, I have no stories, I live in the middle of nowhere, South Dakota. To find more stories, you need to put your phone down and look around, right? I think of sitting in an airport and I remember watching a woman struggle with her baby. She was by herself, she was flying, she had a stroller, she had a baby, she had, the baby bag, suitcases, all that. And someone simply offered to carry her stroller down the jet walk or whatever and place it down there for her, right? Story. I had nothing to do with it, but it's a story I could talk about in the future. I think of sitting in my yard. That's not a good one because Woolsey, nothing happens. I see like 2 cars a day. But just things in life. You think of the lessons you learn at your work, the lessons you learn from other people, all that kind of stuff. So I think the world could use it a little more if we put our phone down and make memories. If you don't have a good story, make one. Okay. So you could be the story someone's waiting to hear. That was the other quote from this book. So Stories That Stick by Kendra Hall. I bought it on Amazon. It's good. And so it's just that you could be the story someone's waiting to hear. Another quote, I should have wrote it down, is something about like your stories could become someone's survival manual. Like the stories you tell could get someone through the hard. And so I just think it's really important to share our stories. Like I even think of, the struggles of moving, the struggles of adulthood, the struggles of finding a job, the struggles of becoming a mom, the struggles of XYZ, not killing your husband during quarantine. The stories of, I finally caved and started watching Tiger King. That was bad. And so I'm gonna catch up on Carol Baskins. Right, there's a lot. I think that's all. Yes, that's the end of my presentation. So I'm gonna stop sharing so I can see all your beautiful faces. Sorry, I feel like I just talked for a really long time. Does anyone have questions? I hope that was helpful. Okay. I'm seeing
So I have a question.
Maybe you're just being polite and nice and saying,
I have a question.
oh, I don't know what Sarah said. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
You're unmuted, but I can't hear what you're saying.
Can you hear me now?
Okay. Perfect. I still can't hear her. Okay. I'm going to stop recording. Okay.